Hello! In this video, you're going to learn how to create a bow and arrow system. So I can aim my bow down, I can aim it up, and then I can also shoot my arrow into things and it will stay stuck in there. And before we get started, if you'd like to learn how to make an even more advanced bow and arrow system which works with enemies, and in fact make a whole melee combat system with an inventory system and much more, you can get access to all of that and all of my other courses for over 75% off. There'll be a link to it in the description of the video, and it helps support the channel. With that said, let's get into the video. Hello, to get started, I'm in the Unreal Engine project browser, and I'm going to be creating this from a blank third-person template. So I'm just in the third-person template, and I have no variants. For the project name, I'm just going to call this my bow system. Now, to get started, I'm first going to import some animations I want my character to do when they are using their bow, and we're also going to import a bow and arrow model. There'll be a link to these assets in the description if you want to download them and follow along, although you can use your own animations and bow if you have that as well. So first I'm just going to go to my content folder, right click, create a new folder. I'm just going to call this bow animations. I will head inside here, and then I'm going to drag and import all of these files into this folder. For the skeleton, we just want to select the SK mannequin. And then before we import the animations, just go to search and look for snap. And we just want to enable snap to closest frame boundary. Otherwise, some of the animations don't import. So just click import. It'll say there are some issues with the import, although don't worry, all these animations work fine. I've tested them. Next, we just want to go back to our content folder. I'm going to right click and create a new folder. Just call this the bow and arrow. Head inside here, right click, create a new folder, just call this bow, then head inside this folder, and first we just want to import this SK Elven bow, import it. Then once this has been imported, we just want to select the idle animation and the pooled animation and import them. When we import these animations, make sure to just select the SK Elven bow as the skeleton, then click import. And then we also just want to drag and import its textures. Next, let's just create a new folder, call it arrow, and head inside here. Then we just want to go over to the arrow folder. Now I was having some issues importing the arrow, so the way I added this to my project is first just drag and import the arrow, then go over to skeletal meshes, and when we import this, just force it to be a skeletal mesh, and then just drag and import its textures. And then if we just go to the elven arrow, click make static mesh, and then just go over to the bow and arrow folder, go over to the bow folder, and we can just call this the static mesh underscore arrow. Save this. And then whoops, I want to just put this in the arrow folder. Okay, next we just want to create a material for these. Drag in the normal, click apply, go over to the static mesh arrow, and then I'm just going to give this the arrow material. Then we'll do the same thing for the bow. So just right click on this, create a material, open it up, drag in the bow normal, connect this into normal, go apply, close this, and then we just want to open up the elven bow, and we just want to give it this material. So we can just drag from here to make it have this material. So now we have imported all of the animations and the bow model that we're going to use. The next thing we're going to do is set up the locomotion and animations my player character should play when they're holding their bow. If we just go to the bow animations folder, we just want to right click here and go to animation, and we just want to select a blend space, select our SK mannequin, and just call this the blend space underscore bow. Open this up. Then we just want to go over to our horizontal axis and call this direction. Make this have a minimum value of -180 and a max value of 180. Then we just want to go over to the vertical axis, call this speed. Make this have a minimum value of 0 and a max value of 600. Then we just want to go over to the search assets and look for our character's idle, and we want this one, the archer idle animation. Drag this in and hold shift, and then that will basically just snap this into position, and we just want to drag this all along the bottom. So we want one here, one here, and one here. Next, we just want to add our archer running animations. So if we look for the AR, and then we want the AR run backwards, just like this, hold shift, and place this here, and also here. Then we want the archer run forwards, place this in the center. We want the archer run left, place this towards the left, and we want the archer run right, place this towards the right. And if you hold control, you'll be able to preview what animation our player character will do depending on their direction and their speed. We can save this. The next thing we're going to do is basically go over to our character's animation blueprint and make it so our player character uses this. So to do that, if I just click here, it will take me to my character's animation blueprint. And I just want to go over to the animation graph, and we want to go over to locomotion, head inside here, and just delete everything here. There's basically control of my character's idle and walking and running animation. Instead, we just want to drag in our blend space bow, connect from entry into here, and head inside here. Right click on this direction and promote it to a variable. And then we just want to drag in the ground speed, get it, and connect this into speed. And we'll use these two values to determine what animation our player character should play. Everything else is already handled. Next, we just want to go over to our event graph, and we just need to change a couple of things. So in the default event graph, the ground speed is divided by this running speed, which is 600. We just want to remove this, delete this, and just connect this into here. This will basically tell us the speed that our player character is actually moving at. We don't want to divide it by anything. So we'll now be able to determine what speed our character should go at. The next thing we want to do is basically determine the direction our player character should be in. So if I just create a new pin, and I'm just going to right click and look for the calculate direction node. We want to just drag in the direction, set it, connect this into direction here, and connect from then into here. Just double click so we can add a reroute node so it's tidier. And then for the velocity, we can just drag in our character's velocity. Then for the rotation, we just want to drag in our character. This will give us a reference to the character that's using this. And we just want to drag off here and look for get actor rotation. Then connect from here into base rotation. Compile this and go save. Close this. And now if I play my game, my character is doing their archer animations. Nice. The next thing I want to do is I want to make it so my player character can hold a bow. So to do that, let's just go over to our bow and arrow, and I'm just going to create a new folder. I'll call it blueprints. Let's head inside here, right click, go over to blueprint class, select an actor, and just call this the BP_bow. Open this up, and we just want to go add and look for a skeletal mesh. For the skeletal mesh, just look for our SK Elven bow, scroll down, and we want to make sure that this has no collision. Next, I'm just going to close this, and we want to go over to our character, mannequins, meshes, and over to the SKM Quinn simple. And we just want to select the skeleton, and we just want to go over to preview animation and look for the archer aim. The next thing we're going to do is basically position where our bow should be when our player character is holding it. So we just want to look for our character's hand L, so left hand, that's where they're going to hold the bow. We're going to right click on this, go add socket, and just call this bow. Then we just need to go up here again and look for bow. Then right click again and go add preview asset and look for the SK Elven bow. Then we just want to position this so it's in our player character's hand. So I'm just going to rotate it and position it. To get more precision when you're rotating it, we can play around with these values here. So if I just change this to something like 5, then I'll be able to rotate it by 5 degrees. I'm just going to position this so it's in my player character's hand now. Okay, so I've now done that. I can save this, close this, and then I just want to go over to my third person blueprint and over to the third person character. Let's go over to the event graph, find some free space, and just right click and look for event begin play. So as soon as our game starts, this is going to fire, and what we're going to do is just drag off here and look for spawn actor from class. The actor we're going to spawn is going to be the bow. Where we spawn it, we just want to right click here on spawn transform and go split structure pin. Then right click on this and promote it to a variable. That way we have a reference to our bow, and I'll just call this the bow reference. Then we just want to drag off here and look for attach actor to component. What we're going to be attaching is the bow, and we're going to be attaching it to our mesh, and we'll be attaching it to the bow socket that we just made. So here under socket name, type in whatever you call the socket. I just called mine bow. Then go over to locational, change this to snap to target. We want to change this to snap to target, and we want to change this to snap to target, and that will put it in the correct position. Now if I compile this, and I just go here and I click play editor in window, when I play my game, I'll start off with my bow. Nice. I'll close this, and then next I'm just going to comment this, and I'm just going to call this swarm bow. And I'll click show bubble when zoomed. Next, I want to make it so my player character can aim and shoot with their bow. We're going to make it so when the player character aims, the camera will zoom in. So let's set up that system first. First, I'm just going to close this and go over to my input folder and over to my actions, and I'm going to create some new input actions for aiming and shooting my bow. So I'm just going to right click here, go over to input and select input action, and I'll just call this input action underscore aim. And then I'm going to right click again and create another input action. And this time I'll just call this input action underscore shoot. Then if we just go over to our IMC default, this is where all of the different controls for our game are. We're going to go over to mapping and add a new mapping. Select here and select the input action underscore aim. Then just expand it and then click here and click the button you want your player character to click in order to aim. I'm going to make it the right mouse button. So when my player clicks the right mouse button, they'll be able to aim their bow. Then I'm just going to create another new mapping. This time I'll call it IA underscore shoot. I'll click here and then I'm going to press the left mouse button. When I want to shoot my bow, I'll press the left mouse button. I'll save this and then let's go over to our third person character. Right click in some free space and then just look for IA underscore aim. Then just expand this. When my player character aims their bow, we're going to change the way that they basically rotate in the game. I'm also going to tell the game that our player character is aiming. So for this, I'm just going to create a new function. And I'm just going to call it aim bow. Go over to input and add a new variable. Make sure it's a boolean and just call this toggle. Drag off here and look for branch. If the player character is aiming the bow, then we're going to change a couple of things. First, we're going to drag in the character movement. Drag off here and look for set orient rotation to movement. Make sure this is left unchecked. This will basically stop our player character from rotating towards the direction that they move in. And instead, we just want to drag off here and look for set use controller desired rotation and make sure that this is checked. Then we just want to drag off here and look for set rotation rate. And then we want to change this to something very high. This will basically change how fast our player character can rotate. Change this to something like 3000. And then we just want to create a new variable and call it is aiming question mark. And we just want to set this to true. This will basically just let our game know that our player character is aiming their bow. Make sure it's checked. Then, if we aim the bow and we want the player character to stop aiming the bow, then we can just copy all of these nodes, go Control C, Control V to paste them, connect from false into here, make sure this one's checked, make sure this one is unchecked. For the rotation rate, if I just select my character movement and in the details I look for rotation, the default rotation rate is 500, so I'm just going to change it back to 500. And then we want to make sure that is aiming is unchecked. Then just compile this, go back to the event graph, and drag in the aim bow. When we press the right mouse button, we want to toggle the aim bow. And then when the player character lets go of the right mouse button, we want to copy this, paste it, connect from completed into here, and leave this unchecked. Okay, now if I compile this and I play my game, when I press the right mouse button and I hold it down, you should see the player character basically just rotates to wherever I move my mouse. However, when I let go, then I should be able to move again. I noticed my character, he was kind of moving kind of choppily. If I just go back to my aim bow, I never actually changed this to back to 500. So let me just compile this and then play my game again. Okay, and that's looking good. If say I change this to something like 10, then when I'm aiming, my player character will basically take a very long time to rotate. So that's why we made it a high value like 3000. Okay, next, when our player character is aiming, we want the camera to zoom in. Because normally in games where you have a bow and arrow system, when you aim, the camera will zoom in slightly. So let's go over how to set up that process. In some free space, if we just right click and look for add custom event and call this start camera zoom. I just want to drag off here and look for add timeline. We want this one with the timeline icon. I can just call this my camera zoom timeline. Head inside here, go over to the length of this and make it 0.25 seconds. This is going to be how long it takes for our camera to zoom in when we're aiming. Go over to track and add a float track. We can just call this the alpha. Right click, go add key to curve float, and at time 0, we want this to have a value of 0. Then we just want to right click again, add another key to the curve float. At time 0.25, we want this to have a value of 1. Then we just want to click these arrows to expand it. Then just right click on the value at the bottom and click auto. This will just make the timeline smoother. Then we just want to go over to our event graph. And we just want to drag in our follow camera. And just drag off here and look for set field of view. And if I just let my follow camera, right now the default field of view is 90. But if I change this to something like 45, then the camera is going to be more zoomed in. So we're going to basically kind of zoom in our camera when our character is aiming their bow. Although we're going to gradually zoom in our camera over 0.25 seconds because that's how long our timeline is. So to do this, we can just right click and look for the lerp. For the alpha, connect from alpha into here. Now the way this lerp mode will work is when the alpha is at a value of 0, it will be whatever value A is. And when the alpha is at value 1, it will be whatever value B is. We can just connect from return value into here. Now if I just select my follow camera, we can see the starting field of view is 90. So here under A, I'm just going to type in 90. And then B, I'm going to make it 50. Then I'm just going to connect from update into here. Then I'm just going to drag in my camera boom, drag off here, and we're going to look for set socket offset. And connect from here to here. If you don't know what the camera boom is, if I just select it, we can kind of just adjust this to kind of move the position of our camera. And we're going to move the camera slightly towards the right when the player character is aiming, and we're also going to move it closer towards our player character. So we can also just right click here and look for lerp vector, connect from this return value into here, and from alpha, I'm just going to double click to add a reroute node into here. Now, A, we can leave this at 0, 0, 0 because that's what our starting value is. And then B, I'd have kind of play around with this. You can use any value you want, but I put 30 in the X. Then I put 60 in the Y and around 55 in the Z. You can play around with this though. And then we just want to right click again and look for add custom event and just call this stop camera zoom and connect this into reverse. Okay, then when we aim, we just want to call the start camera zoom. And then when we stop aiming, we just want to call the stop camera zoom. Compile this. And now if I just go play, when I press the right mouse button, we can see it will zoom in. And then when I let go, the camera will zoom out. So that is working nicely. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make it so when our player character actually aims their bow, they'll play an aiming bow animation. Right now we make the camera zoom in, although they're not really aiming their bow. So let's go over how to set this up. Also another thing, when our player character aims their bow, we're going to make it so they can aim it up and they can aim it down. To do that, we're going to create something called an animation offset. So if I just close this, we're going to go over to our bow animations and we just want to right click, go over to animation, go over to legacy and select aim offset 1D, select the SK mannequin, and we can just call this the aim offset 1D underscore aim bow. Another thing, before working with aim offset, we're going to use this aim center, this aim down, and this aim up, so our player character can aim their bow up and down. But we just need to head over into all of the animations we want to use for our aim offset, open them up, scroll down, and go to additive settings, change this to mesh space, and go here and we just want to select animation frame, and then we just want to select the AR aim. So we're basically going to be blending this animation on top of our Archer aim animation for our aim offset system. We just want to save this, close this, go to the aim down, change this to mesh space, animation frame, and select the AR aim, save this, do the same for the aim up. We want mesh space and animation frame, and select the AR aim. Save this, close this, then go over to the aim offset 1D. We just want to go over to the horizontal axis, and we just want to name this pitch. Make this have a minimum value of -90 and a max value of 90. Then we just want to look for the aim center, place this in the center. I'm just going to hold shift so it's in the center. We're going to look for the aim up, place this here. Then we'll look for the aim down and place this here. If you hold control, you should be able to preview the Archer aiming the bow up and all the way down. Nice. Next we can save this, and we're going to go over to our character's animation blueprint, and we just want to go to the locomotion, open up the blend space bow, and then we just want to move this back and look for blend poses by ball. For the condition, it's going to be if our character is aiming, so we just want to right click on this, promote it to a variable, and call it is aiming ? And if our character is not aiming, then we're just going to do what we were doing before. However, if our player character is aiming, then we are just going to copy this, paste it, and then we just want to drag off here and look for layered blend per bone. This will basically allow us to play animations on top of one another. And we're going to be blending this from our character's spine bone. So if we just go to layer setup, select here, add a pin, and just call this spine 01. So if I just go to my character skeleton, we're basically going to be playing the animations from the blend space pose 0 on top of this. Also, another thing, with the layered blend per bone, just make sure to check this mesh space rotation blend. And then we just want to drag in our aim offset 1D, connect from this into here. For the base pose, we just want to look for the Archer aim, because that's what the aim offset 1D is based on. It's based off these animations. We're basically going to be blending this on top of these animations. Then for the pitch, just right click on this and promote it to a variable, just call it pitch. And then we can just connect from here to true. So we just need to basically tell the animation blueprint when our character is aiming, and we also need to basically calculate what this pitch is. So if I just go over to the event graph, event initialize animation, we just want to drag in our character, get it, drag off here, and cast to the BP third person character. That way we can get a reference to our third person character and the variables inside of them. Right click on this and promote it to a variable. Then I'm just going to add another pin, and I'm just going to drag in my third person character, and I'm going to check to see if they're aiming. So I'm just going to get the is aiming variable. Then I'm just going to drag in my is aiming here and set it, and connect from here into here, and from then into here. So now we know when our player character is aiming. Next, we want to determine the pitch. So in order to do this, we can just add another pin, and then I can just drag in my character. And to get the pitch, we're basically going to get where our player character is looking at, and then we're going to get the rotation of our character, and then we're going to subtract those two values, and that will tell us the pitch of our character. So I'm just going to drag off here and look for get base aim rotation. I'll drag off here and look for get actor rotation. So this will get the rotation of my character. This will get where I'm looking. Then we just want to right click and look for delta rotator. Connect from A into here and from B into here. This will basically subtract these two values. And we just want to right click here and look for split structure pin. And we want the pitch. And we can drag in our pitch, set it, and connect from here into here. Add this pin into here. Double click to add a reroute node. And now our animation blueprint should know when our player character is aiming and what their pitch is. So if I compile this, save this, and I go play. When I press the right mouse button, we can see I'm aiming. When I aim the camera down and up, we can see my character follows. Okay, nice. So with this, our player character can aim their bow. Next, let's make it so our player character can actually shoot their bow. Before our player character can actually shoot their bow, I want to create a crosshair which will basically appear on the screen, which will allow my player character to aim their bow. So let's just go over to the third person blueprint folder. I'm going to right click, go over to user interface, select a widget blueprint, go over to user widget. Let's just call this the BP underscore crosshair. Open it up. Let's go over to the palette and look for an overlay. Just drag it in here. Then look for an image. Drag this image into the overlay. Select the image and just align it into the center. And we just want to go to brush and go draw as a rounded box. Let's go to the image size. Let's change it to something like 10 by 10. So now we have this overlay widget, which is in the center of our screen. Just compile this, save it, go over to our third person character. And event begin play after we spawn our bow. Let's just drag off here and look for create widget. The widget is going to be our crosshair. And we just want to right click on this, promote it to a variable. We can just call this our crosshair. And that's all we need to do. Then when our player character aims, let's just head inside here. And we just want to drag in our crosshair. And just add this to our viewport. And then when we stop aiming, we just want to drag in the crosshair and look for remove from parent, and this will remove the crosshair. So now if I go compile and I play my game, when I press the right mouse button, I see the crosshair. When I let go, I don't. When I press right mouse button, I see it. So with this, our player character should be able to aim their bow. The next thing we want to do is we want to make it so when the player presses the left mouse button, we'll shoot a bow and it will go to wherever our crosshair is. So let's go over how to set that up. First, I'm going to just close this and I'm going to go to my bow and arrow blueprints. Let's right click, go to blueprint class, select an actor, call this the BP underscore arrow. And we just want to open this up, go to the components, and we just want to look for a static mesh. This is going to be our arrow. So just look for the SM arrow, scroll down and make sure that this has no collision. Then just go add again and look for a box collision. And with this box collision, we just want to drag it into the default scene root. So make sure you do that and make sure its collision presets are set to overlap all dynamic. Then we just want to make this fit around our arrow. So I'm going to make mine 2, 3, and give this a width of, let's say, okay, I got those values wrong. I think I wanted this at 3, I want this at 3, and I want this at 10. Okay, now I'm just gonna expand on this arrow. We basically just want to have this collision fit around our arrow. Then we just want to go over to the event graph and look for add custom event and just call this launch arrow. Now, when we call this launch arrow, what we're going to do is we're going to give this arrow some projectile movement, so that will basically move forwards. So if I just drag off here and I look for add projectile movement component, right click on this and promote it to a variable. We can just call this the projectile movement reference. And then now that our arrow has some projectile movement, we're going to basically set the velocity of the arrow. Although we're going to basically do a calculation so that we can shoot the arrow wherever our player character is aiming at. So we just want to drag off here and look for set velocity. Connect from here into here. Although just connect from velocity into here because we're going to do a calculation from where we spawn the arrow in order to basically determine its velocity. Then we just want to drag off this return value and look for set projectile gravity scale. By default, I think it's set to 1, which basically means it will be affected by gravity, and so when we shoot the arrow, it will move down. Although I think 1 is too high, so just make this something like 0.4, and then connect from here into here. We can always change this later if we need to. We can then just compile this and save it. When our player character is aiming their arrow, we basically want the arrow to spawn in our player character's hand. So I'm just going to close this, and I'm actually going to save everything. It's a good idea to just randomly save your project when you're working on it, because when I've been working on projects, Unreal Engine can just crash and then you lose a bunch of work, so we don't want that to happen. So make sure to regularly save your project. Then just want to go over to our SKM Quinn. Let's go over to the skeleton. Let's go over to preview animation, select aim, and I'm going to be spawning an arrow in my character's right hand. So here in the skeleton tree, I'm going to look for hand R. I will add a socket. I'll just call this the arrow. Then here I'm going to look for arrow. Right click on this, go add preview asset, and look for the arrow. We want this one, static mesh arrow. Rotate it. And then we just want to position this like it's in our arrow. So I'm just going to quickly do that. Okay, so I've now done that. I can save this, close this, and let me go over to my third person character and over to the event graph. After I aim my bow, I'm just going to drag off here and look for spawn actor from class. The actor is going to be an arrow. I'm going to right click on the spawn transform, and then I'm just going to right click on this and promote it to a variable. I'll call this my arrow reference. I'm then just going to drag off here and look for attach actor to component. I'll be attaching this to the mesh. And then for the location rule, I'm going to go snap to target. For the rotation rule, I'm going to go snap to target. For the scale rule, I'm going to go snap to target. And then for the socket name, I'm just going to call this arrow. Then if my player character ever stops aiming, we're going to despawn the arrow if we have one. So I'm just going to move this down a bit. We can just comment this camera zoom. And then here, I'm going to move this down a bit. I'll drag in my arrow reference, get it, right click on this, and go convert to validated get. If this is valid, then we're just going to drag off here and look for destroy actor. Okay, nice. So with this, if I compile this, if I save it, if I play my game, when I aim, I'm just going to press a button. My player character has the arrow. So next, we want to be able to shoot the arrow. So I'm just going to find some free space here, right click and look for IA underscore shoot. Then I'm just going to expand this. Before our player character shoots their arrow, we want to make sure they have a valid arrow reference. So let's just drag it in, get it, then right click on this and go convert to validated get. When we shoot our arrow, we want to detach it from our player character's hand. So just drag off the arrow reference and look for detach from actor. When we detach it, we want to basically keep its position in the world. So go here, change this to keep world, do the same here and the same here. Then after we do all of this, we want to launch our arrow. So just drag off here and look for launch arrow. Then for the velocity of the arrow, we basically want to do a calculation to determine where we should shoot the arrow. And that's going to basically be from the center of our player character's screen. So we're going to create a new function. Just call this calculate arrow velocity. And the way we're going to do this is we're first going to just drag off here and look for line trace by channel. And we're going to do a line trace from the center of the player character screen, because that's going to be where they're aiming. So to do this, we want to drag in the follow camera, drag off here and look for get world location. That's going to be where we start our line trace. And then where we end it, we're going to end it a couple units in front of our player character. So I'm just going to drag off here and we're going to get the forward vector, so the forward direction of our follow camera. Drag off here and just look for multiply. And we want to multiply this by a large value. Right click on this and convert this to a float and make it a large value. So something like 7,000. Drag off here and look for add and connect this into here. So we're going to end the line trace 7,000 units in front of our camera. Just so that we can see this, turn the draw debug on to full duration. Then we just want to drag off the out hit result and look for break hit result. We're going to reference this in just a second. Next, we just want to get in our arrow reference and check that it's valid. So just right click on here, convert this to a validated get. And if we have a valid arrow reference, what we're going to do is we just want to drag off here and look for return node. Go over to outputs, just call this velocity. Make sure it's pure. And we just want to make sure this is a vector. Then we just want to right click and look for get unit direction vector. Connect from the return value into here. And we're going to get where our arrow is. So we can just drag off here and look for get actor location. Then we're going to get where our line trace hit, if it hit something. So we can just expand this, and then if our line trace hit something, we can just get the location of where it ended. Although if say our line trace doesn't hit something, then we just want to use the trace end. So we're actually just going to right click here and look for select vector. We can plug this return value into here to see if we actually hit something. And if we hit something, then we're just going to use value A. However, if we don't hit something, then we're just going to get wherever our trace ends. Connect this into here. Compile this. Go over to the event graph. Then we can just drag this in. Because we made this a pure function, it's just going to give us the end result of this. And then after we do this, we just want to tell the game we no longer have a valid arrow reference. So I can just set the arrow reference, and this will make it no longer valid. I can then just compile this, save this, and now I get play. I should be able to shoot my arrow. Okay, so I did see my arrow. Although I noticed it wasn't moving, and that's my bad. That's because I forgot to do something. We just want to multiply the velocity by something so that the arrow is actually moving. So I'm just going to drag off here and look for multiply. Let's right click here, change this to a float. Let's make this something like 3000. And then connect this into here. Then if I go compile and I go play, we'll shoot an arrow where our line trace hits. So if I aim, we can see we can shoot our arrow. Nice. So we've got the basics of the system working. Although I just want to polish this up with a couple more things. I want to make it so the bow will basically kind of pull back when I'm aiming, and then I'll go back when I shoot. I have to keep on like aiming again to shoot my arrow. I want to make it so we can automatically redraw the arrow, and then I just want to add some sound effects and VFX, and also make it so when I shoot the arrow into something, it'll basically be stuck in that thing. So that's what we'll cover next. Okay, next we're going to make it so our player character can continuously shoot an arrow. So to do this, I'm just going to close this, and we want to go over to the bow animations, and we want to find the shoot and draw animation, go create, and go create animation montage. Open this up, and we basically want to find the part in the animation where we want to reload our bow. So around here, and I'm just going to right click on the notice, go add notify, create a new notify, and call this redraw bow. Then we just want to go to our animation blueprint, and then I'm going to right click and look for event redraw bow. And when I redraw my bow, I'm just going to go to my third person character, and let's go to the part where we spawn the arrow. So here I'm just going to right click and look for add custom event. I'll call it redraw. And we're going to redraw the player character's bow if they no longer have one. So I'm just going to get that arrow reference. I'm going to convert it to a validated get and make sure it's not valid. And I'm going to make sure that the player character is not aiming, because if they're not aiming, we don't want to redraw the bow. So I'll get is aiming, other branch. And if it is false, if aiming is true, then we will allow our player character to redraw their bow. So I'm going to go back to the animation blueprint, and here we can drag in our third person character reference and call the redraw. Okay, now if I compile this and I go save, then we just want to go over to our third person character, and after we launch the arrow, let's just drag off here and look for play and montage, and we're just going to play the the shoot and draw. Now if I compile this and I go play, I should be able to continuously shoot arrows. Although you'll notice when the player character moves, and let's say I shoot, they kind of stand still. So we kind of want these animations to only play on the top half of our player character's body. That way they can walk and shoot as well. I'm just going to close this, and I'm actually just going to go here and change the line trace to none. That way I no longer see it. Then let's go to the shoot and draw animation montage. Go over to slot name, and change it to upper body. We're only going to play this animation on the upper body of our player character. We can save this. Then we just want to go over to our character's animation blueprint, and we just want to go over to their animation graph. Go over to the main states here, right click on this and go break link. drag off here and look for new cached pose. Just call this main states. So basically storing the animations that our player character can do here. Then we just want to look for the layered, this one, the layered blend per bone. Right click and look for the main states cached pose. Connect this into base pose. Copy this and paste it. Then we just want to copy and paste this. Connect from here to here. Although this time select the slot. And we want to select the upper body slot. That's the slot we changed this animation to. And connect this into here. And then we just want to go over to layered blend per bone. Go over to the layer setup. Go over to index, branch filters, add one, and just click spine 01. We'll basically blend any animation montage on top of the spine 01. Select this mesh space rotation. And then we just want to connect from here into here. Compile this. Now if I go save and I play my game, I should be able to shoot and walk. Because we're basically blending that animation on top of our player character's body. Nice. So that is working all good. The next thing we're going to do is make it so this bow can have its string pulled back. Let's save this, close this, go over to the bow folder, right click, go over to animation, and we want legacy, select blend space 1D, select the SK album bow skeleton. We can call this the blend space 1D underscore bow. Open this up, and we just want to go over to the horizontal axis, rename this to alpha, make the minimum value 0 and the max value 1. We just want to go over to the album bow idle, place this at 0, then go over to the album bow pulled, place this at 1. We should be able to press Control to preview the animation. Save this, close this, and then we just want to right click. We're going to create an animation blueprint for our bow. Go over to animation, select animation blueprint, select the SK album bow, create it. I'll just call this the animation blueprint bow. We can open this up, right click and look for state machine. Just call this bow. Connect from here to here, head inside here, and we can drag in the blend space 1D bow. Connect from here to here, open this up, and create a new variable. Just call it alpha, and compile this. Then I'm just going to close this and go over to my blueprints and over to the bow. And I'm just going to create a new variable. I'll call this alpha. We'll make this a float. Compile this. Then we just want to go over to the animation blueprint bow, over to the event graph, and event blueprint update animation. We're going to call this try get pawn owner. This will basically get the owner of whoever owns this animation blueprint. We're going to make it the BP bow. This needs to basically be a pawn. I realize this blueprint isn't a pawn, so let's just go to class settings and change this to be a pawn. Compile and save this. Then I should be able to go here, drag off here, and cast to the BP bow. I'm going to right click on this and promote it to a variable. And then we can just get the alpha from here and set the alpha to be whatever it is inside of our bow. I'll compile this. Then I'm just going to go back to my bow and I'm just going to right click and look for add custom event, and I'm just going to call this draw bow. I'll drag off here and look for add timeline. Let's open this up, make the track length of this, let's say 0.2 seconds, add a track, add a float track. We can just call this the bow alpha. We can right click on this, add a key to the curve float, at time 0, we want this to have a value 0, right click again, at time 0.2, we want this to have a value of 1. I'll click here to expand it, right click here and go auto. I'll give it my event graph. Then I'm just going to drag this in here, look for set alpha, right click and look for the lerp, connect from bow alpha into here. For A, I want this to be 0. For B, I want this to be 1. Then I'm going to connect this into here. And from update into here, then I'm just going to right click here and look for add custom event. We can call this something like fired bow, and then connect from reverse into here. Compile this. Let's go over to our skeletal mesh and make it use the animation blueprint bow. Compile this, save it, then go over to our third person character, we can go over to our aim bow, and when I aim the bow, I'll drag in my bow reference and call the draw bow. And then when I stop aiming the bow, I can just drag off here and call the fire bow. Maybe I shouldn't have called this fire bow because we're not firing it here, but we'll basically be putting the bow back into position. And then I'm just going to copy this. Let's go to the event graph, and then when I fire the bow, we can also just call this fired bow. And then I'm going to copy this. If all of this is true, we can draw the bow before we do this. Okay, I'll compile this, save it, and go play. And now my bow is drawn. I can shoot it, it'll go forwards. So that is working all good. I do realize my bow position is slightly off, so I'm just gonna quickly adjust that. Okay, that looks slightly better. I've slightly adjusted where my bow is. Okay, nice. Next, I want to add a simple trail particle effect, which will basically spawn on my arrow when I shoot it. That way it looks a bit nicer. To start this process, let's just go to the arrow folder, right click, and go to Niagara System. And we want to go to Search Assets and look for Minimal. Select this one and go Create. Call this the Niagara System _ arrow trail. Open this up, and there are a couple things we want to change. First, we want to go to Sprite Renderer and delete this. Go Add and look for a ribbon renderer. Then we just want to go to Particle Spawn and go Add Velocity. And I made the velocity in the Z around 100. We also want to go to Emitter Update and look for Spawn Rate. And I made it around 250. Go over to Initialize Particle and make the lifetime of the particle around 0.15 seconds. Then go over to Ribbon Width and make it direct set and change it to 3. You can make this as thick as you want. Go save, close this. And if I drag this in, we should have a trail particle effect. So it's just very simple. We can delete this, then go over to your blueprints, over to the BP arrow. And when we launch our arrow, let's just drag off here and look for spawn system attached. The system we're going to be spawning is the Niagara System arrow trail. Where we're going to spawn it, we can just drag in our static mesh. Sorry, where we're going to attach it, so we're just going to drag in our static mesh and connect this into here. Go compile, save this, and if I go play, when I shoot my arrow, it should have a trail, and that just helps make it look nicer. Next, I want to make it so when I shoot the arrow into the ground or something, we can actually see the arrow being stuck and hitting the ground. To do this, we just want to select our box and go over to On Component Begin Overlap. So when this box hits something, we're basically going to make the arrow stop moving and be stuck in whatever it hits. I don't want this to overlap my player character, so I'm just going to drag off other actor, and I want to check to see that this is not equal to my player character. So I'm just going to right click and look for Get Player Character. And if this is true, then we're going to make the arrow stop and be inside whatever we hit. So if this is true, the first thing we want to do is just drag in our projectile movement reference, get it, and drag off here and look for Destroy Component. This will stop our arrow from being able to move. We then want to make it so this box is no longer colliding with anything again. So let's just drag in the box, drag off here and look for Set Collision Enabled, and set it to have no collision. And on this note, Event Begin Play, we also just want to drag on our box and make it have no collision. So look for this, Set Collision Enabled, set it to no collision. And then when we fire our arrow, we can copy this and paste it, and we can go here and go query. We can do this one, collision enabled. That way when we fire the arrow, its collision will be turned on. And then after we do all of this, we want to attach the arrow into whatever we hit. So we can just drag off here and look for attach actor to component. What we're going to attach it to, we can just go here, drag off the sweep result and look for break hit result. This will give us the information about whatever our box has overlapped. And what we want to do is get the hit component that we hit and connect it into parent. And then here we just want to go keep wild, keep world. Then we just want to drag off here and look for set lifespan and set it to be 4 seconds. This will be how long the arrow will basically be in the ground or wherever it hits, and then it will destroy after 4 seconds. Next, just go to the box, go search and look for overlap. Make sure that generate overlap events is checked. Then go into the things that you want the arrow to be able to stick into. So I want to go here and look for overlaps. I've already done it. And you just want to like check generate overlap events on anything you want the arrow to be able to stick in. And now if I play the game, when I shoot the arrow, we can see it's stuck in those objects. If an object doesn't have it, then it won't get stuck. So I made this part of the wall generate overlap. And then you can see after 4 seconds, it disappears. So with that, I have made a bow and arrow system. And if you want to add sound effects, I'll also include some sound effects. So I'm just going to create a new folder, call it SFX. I have this hit sound effect and this shoot sound effect. So let me go to my arrow. And whenever we hit something, after we do all of this, I'm just going to look for play sound at location. I'll look for the hit. And then the location, we can just right click and look for get back to location. Connect this into here. We can copy this node, go over to our third person looping character. Actually, we can do this in the arrow. After I launch the arrow, I'm just going to paste this here. And I'll call the shoot. So now if I compile this and I go play, I have some sound effects. And that is how to set up a bow and arrow system in Unreal Engine. So that's all for this video. If you want to learn how to make an even more advanced bow and arrow system and learn how to make everything you need for an RPG game, like a combat system, a character creator, and much more, make sure to check out all of my Unreal Engine courses. You can get access to them following the top link in the description of this video. With that said, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.